Hello, I'm Aaron Fowler, and welcome to another episode of the Disability Sports Podcast. I'd like to begin this episode by saying a huge thank you to everyone who has listened to the podcast so far. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you use for listening to your podcasts. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media on Instagram, TikTok and X at the Disability Sports Podcast. My guest this week is England physical disability cricketer Sammy Kumar. Sammy talks about his cricketing journey so far and the recent series the England team played against India. He also discussed his cricketing ambitions for the future. Here is the interview, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, Sammy, and welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to hearing about your cricketing journey so far and your recent tour that you've been on. Just wondered if you could start off by telling us a bit about yourself.
Yep. So my name is Sammy. I'm 20 years old. I play cricket for the England physical disability team. I also work part-time at Boots Opticians as an optical consultant, as well as I'm a law student at Solent, Southampton University, as well as I do some charity work, and I have quite a few connections with Christian organisations.
And I just wondered if you could start off by telling us a little bit about where you grew up and what sports you played as a youngster.
So I grew up in a city called St Albans in Hertfordshire. It's quite a lovely city, if I do say so. But it's probably because I probably grew up in the right places and had a good time in the area. Really enjoyed primary school and secondary school. So the sports that I grew up with, majoritively was football. The majority of it. I only really got into cricket in actually year 5 and year 6. So quite later on, for someone of my background, from a South Asian background, it's quite odd not to kind of get, right into cricket. I got into football first. Didn't actually know what cricket was until India actually won the World Cup in 2011. So that was another thing for me. And then, but yeah, I started playing it in year 5, year 6, and pretty much have never looked back.
And growing up, who were your sporting idols?
So my sporting idols were, so when I first started, I wanted to be a really, really fast bowler. And so I actually didn't have a bat when I was younger, in terms of like when I first started out, I didn't know how good I was going to be, and my parents didn't know, how much I was going to commit to cricket. My dad loved it, obviously, but didn't know how much I was going to commit to it. So all I'd do was pretty much have a ball and just in the hallway, just try and bowl as fast as I can. Just like when I first started off, and before I joined my club at St Albans City, I'd just try and do that. And so we had quite a few bookings, as in there were only a certain amount of people that we were allowed to have on like a Friday night cricket session, for colts and things like that. So there was, in year 4, when I actually wanted to join, I couldn't do it. So it was year 5 that was given the opportunity. So when I was about 9-10 years old, and went in with a bang. I was quite a good bowler. I used to bowl in swing. I think I still got it, but but a leggy now. But yeah, I used to bowl a lot of in swing. Used to open the bowling, take wickets, and that's pretty much what I wanted to do. So my sporting idol was at that time like Shoaib Akhtar, like the fast bowlers at the time. Even though he was a little bit before me, but like Shoaib Akhtar, you look at Brett Lee. I'd want to be like that when I first started off playing cricket. And now, obviously, when I actually transitioned to becoming a leg spinner, Shane Warne was a very, very big part of my life, and just the mindset that he had, and was just amazing to see. Taking 700 plus wickets as a leg spinner hasn't been done to this date. So
Yeah, I mean, what a player!
Yeah,
it's not definitely the best person to look up to. I think as a spin bowler, isn't he?
yeah.
I want to come on to your journey. As how you transitioned, I guess, to spin bowler a
Yeah.
little bit later. But just wondered. So you've told us you started playing cricket, at a fairly young age. How did you then first get involved with physical disability cricket?
So I was introduced to physical disability cricket from a man named Scott Newman. He was ex-county player, played for Middlesex and Surrey, and he was coaching us at like a sub area level. We call it sub county level. So it was West area at the time, West area of Hertfordshire, and he mentioned to me about disability cricket. And to be very honest with you, I didn't think it was my thing. I didn't really want to dive into it. Didn't really know what the standard was going to be like. Didn't have any kind of desires to kind of push through that. I wanted to be mainstream and see how far I could get and things like that. But yeah, I tried. So he referred me to the head coach of Middlesex disability team, and Michael. So Michael Wilson, and so Michael Wilson took me in, took a trial of me. Pretty happy with the way that I played, and pretty much got in there and then.
And what impact did sort of interacting with other players with a physical disability have on you? I mean, I appreciate obviously as players you will have different conditions, but had you ever met many people with a physical disability up until that point?
No. So interestingly, so the very first time that I heard about disability cricket was the very first time I actually encountered any players with disability. So I'd never seen anyone else par myself, playing cricket with a physical disability. Um, well, visible physical disability to say the least. And so that was my first time encountering it, seeing people's we had learning disability players, we had, physical, and recently we've had the deaf team also join kind of the D40 setup. So for me to kind of meet with those players, so at the start of it was disability and physical disability and learning disability, I was quite astonished because I didn't think that there would be many out there. At that time, I don't think the word was out there as well, as in, there was not much talked about, because like me, I didn't hear neither from primary school nor secondary school. I was told by a coach that had been involved in Middlesex and Surrey and things like that. So that was quite astounding to me, and just being able to play with those boys in that first year, I was quite astonished at the level of cricket. Something that took me by surprise.
And you mentioned that when you first got involved with physical disability cricket, it was playing with Middlesex. Do you still play your domestic cricket for Middlesex? And also, what is the structure like for domestic, physical disability cricket in the UK?
So, for me personally, yeah, I still do play. I've been playing, I think, so from 2016 onwards. It's been about 7-8 years now. Played 6 seasons. Obviously, we had the lockdown in between and things like that, so we didn't really get much of a season out of that. But yeah, played there this is probably going to be my 7th season if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I've loved it. Now considered as senior player at 20 years old, which is quite quite an interesting feeling. And for me personally, it's been quite a journey, because I believe that Middlesex gave me the opportunity to break into the Lions squad, which was the England Lions squad at the time, and now so during the lockdown I also broke into the main squad for the England physical disability team. So I got to thank Middlesex Cricket for that, for Michael Wilson and all of the support team, staff and my own teammates for kind of just helping me, building me up to it. Another thing in terms of how the league is actually progressed. So we have Super Nines. We have so Super Nines cricket. I don't really know the structure too well personally, but so we have the Super Nines cricket, soft and hard ball, if I'm not mistaken, and then we have D40, and so it's split into the north and the south, and then we have the top level of D40 Quest. I think it's called Quest or the national level. So that's where Middlesex first team, Hampshire first team, Surrey first team, and all Yorkshire first team disability cricketers play. So it's very good standard of cricket in terms of the fact that the majority of our players, especially the players that we have personally for Middlesex, is got, I think, nine England disability players, whether they be deaf players, learning, or physical disability. So we've got quite a high standard of cricket going.
And so you touched on it, obviously. Then a few years back, obviously you were fortunate to obviously break into the England squad. How did you first get involved with the England team?
So in 2016, I had a trial day at Nuneaton. I will never forget that day. It was the first time I met Ian Salisbury. At the time, was the head coach of. At the time, was transitioning into the head coach for the England main squad, and he was also the assistant coach for the England Lions physical disability squad. And so I got to meet Ian Salisbury. To be very honest with you, I didn't perform at my best, but I guess that they saw something in me, the 13-year-old young leg spinner, to kind of just say, we'll take him on. And from there, my cricket has just excelled. So in 2016, 2017, I had a desire. I'm a very harsh critic of myself. I'm not. You can't really see it on my face, but I internalize quite a lot of things. And when I first started, some of the players that I was playing with, D40 cricket now, especially the national level, like, it wasn't what it was back then. So the jump in levels was quite big. To see some of the players that I was playing with, I was like, I don't deserve to be here. Those were the honest thoughts that I had. And I had to it took Ian Salisbury, he had to kind of drill into me, like, you are good enough to be here. We wouldn't have selected you, and things like that. So that went on for about 2-3 years. So they kind of disbanded. So they didn't. So the England Lions physical disability squad kind of disbanded, and they kind of made not really disbanded, but they kind of pushed it to a pan disability squad. So all of the best deaf, learning, and physical disability Lions players would all come together and play like in a pan disability setting. And so that happened, I think, towards the end of 2019, and they kind of just set us off from there. However, obviously, as we know, in 2020, the lockdown happened. And so for me as a player, I was transitioning, and I was actually performing quite well within the pan disability line setup, and got the opportunity to even train with the England lads for the main squad in 2020, about March, April. So I was sent the email to kind of say, congratulations to Sammy that we're taking him on into the squad, just having a couple of trial days and things like that. And I was very excited, very, very optimistic. I was like, all of my hard work has paid off. I feel like a better player and things like that, and I kind of finally accepted myself as an English player in terms of, like, I am good enough to be at this standard. Well, at least in the Lions disability sector. And unfortunately, lockdown broke the flow of that. Obviously, we had, everything shut off, couldn't train. All of this happened, and it was quite difficult in those 6 months of lockdown in terms of, as a cricketer, how I kind of processed things, because I was like, this was going to be my year. This season would have been the season where I was going to perform well, etc., etc. Those aspirations that every sports person has, to kind of perform well, to do the best they possibly can, whether it be, on and off the field. And that's something that I felt that really kind of hit me a little bit. And fortunately enough, we kind of got something going in September, and I actually made, without actually training, I made my England debut against the Lords Taverners in 2020 in September, which was quite a proud moment for myself and my family, playing my first, England game at Tring Park actually, which is quite close to where I live. So it was felt homely, if that makes sense.
Brilliant. And what series have you played in for England since making your debut?
So due to the lockdown, we just had a World Series in 2019, and so we had India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, if I'm not mistaken, come over and play like a World Series, and we lost the finals, unfortunately. It was quite a big thing, and it hurt a lot of our players. From what I've heard, I wasn't part of the squad at the time, but it hurt quite a lot of our players. And so after that, obviously lockdown happened, and things kind of slowed down, whether it be traveling or meetings with cricketing boards and things like that. So we hadn't had much international cricket for the past 5 years, and we've recently, about a month ago, it's actually been almost a month since I've come back, but about a month ago I was out in India playing my first ever tour for England. So that was wonderful. So first ever tour, first ever experience of going out there. So I've been to India before for family and things like that, but going out there to play cricket is completely different.
And how many games did you guys play out in India, and how did the series go?
So we played a 5-match T20 series out there in India. We played in the state of Gujarat. We played around Ahmedabad and the surrounding areas around that. And so we lost the series 3-2. And for me personally, I played the first game, and then coaches said that pace is better on this. You normally expect in India, turning pitches, a leggy will get a good go, and then when we showed up, it was actually more low and slow at the second innings, and pace was a better option. So I played my first game, didn't bowl too badly personally, but sometimes the ball rolls the other way. So, but it was a wonderful series. I'd like to say I think it created great awareness, at least in India, regarding disability cricket, especially that region of India, and especially physical disability cricket. I feel like the boys did a very good job of showcasing their skills and showcasing the talent that we have, and can't wait for the next one, wherever that is. Just trying to win it now.
And what lessons would you say you learned both individually and as a team from the series in India that you can learn from and take to improve on going forward?
So personally, what I felt for myself, I learned so much about myself as an individual. I've always been like a massive fan of cricket, and like after seeing India win the World Cup and things like that, I just kind of like cricket became a part of who I was. And one thing that I began to realise, I didn't realise how emotionally attached I was with cricket. When we lost that series, I kid you not, I sat there in the dressing room and I was just crying. Like it wasn't like a proper sob or anything. It was just like I felt just emotions run down, because everything that we put in as a squad, all of the hours, all the hard work behind it, when it comes to we lost the series 3-2, but when we lost that, it was the fourth game that we lost, so we could have potentially made it 2-2 and made it a big finale for the fifth game in the Narendra Modi Stadium, but things weren't meant to be. But what I found out about myself personally was that, one, I love cricket. Like, people say I love, but like I love cricket, but I also love playing cricket for England. That's what became a reality for me. Obviously, we kind of, I don't know what the other boys would say, but personally for me, as my first tour as an international player now, coming back, I can confidently say that I truly do love cricket, and I truly want to play for England with that same passion that I did on the first game, and I want to perform the very best that I can for, not just for myself, but for the boys that that step out on that pitch, the 11 of us, and the staff, and the boys who are supporting us want to go out there and perform for them, family members and everything. But I felt like there was another part of me that also felt that I belong here. There was a lot of questions over myself. Like I said, it's quite hard for me personally. I internalize, I internalize quite a lot of things. So for me, I was like, even at this, like Disability International Cricket, do I belong here? And after that first game, like, yeah, I got hit for a bit. I'm not gonna come on this podcast and lie to you, but you know, it's one of those things that I didn't feel out of place, and I think it edged me on to kind of desire it more and essentially become one of the best leg spinners or even best players in the world. I have that desire now.
And you mentioned earlier, obviously, you started off as a pace bowler. So when did the sort of transition to becoming a spin bowler occur?
So, ironically, I was playing club cricket for just my team, and I think it was under 12s, under 13s. Someone just said, just have a go in it, because I wasn't gaining any more pace. I had the ability to swing the ball, but I wasn't gaining any pace. So they were just like, "Oh, just try something different." So just try some spin, try something. So I tried leg spin for the first time, and I got the ball to spin so much that all of my coaches and said, "You should definitely do that." And so afterwards, I just kind of like, it just took two balls. I was able to spin the ball miles, and I think the biggest thing was I took 2 wickets. Like, I know it's just a net session, but I took 2 wickets and I was like, this could really be for me. And after that, I transitioned to a leg spinner. So firstly, I used to play games where I used to bowl pace 2 overs. And so we used to play a lot of T20. So pace 2 overs, spin 2 overs. And I just became like better at it. I don't know kind of what best way to say. I just kind of improved little by little, and just slowly kind of fell out of love with pace bowling and fell more in love with bowling leg spin.
And I saw the piece that you did with the BBC, just before you went out to India. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right in thinking that you have a condition called Erb's palsy, and that has impacted, obviously, use of your left arm. So normally when you're a cricketer, obviously you kind of lead with your, if you're right-handed, you lead with the left arm, don't you?
Left
and then you
arm,
have sort of like this windmill type action as you kind of come over.
Yeah.
So how have you, I guess, adapted your game with obviously having sort of limited use of your left upper limb?
So something that I spoke about in terms of in the BBC piece as well was that I found that I had to utilize whatever I could. So like in terms of momentum, I can kind of get away with it because of momentum, but that doesn't mean that I always will get away with it. So I used to have like what's it called? Inconsistency. I used to be quite inconsistent at times, where sometimes like I'd just bowl like an absolute rank ball and get absolutely smacked out of the park, and then I didn't know what I was doing wrong, because for me that was normal in terms of it feels all right, but it's just coming out wrong, and that was just not utilizing the momentum for myself. So because I can't straighten my arm, I have to try and get my shoulder as high as possible to enable my elbow. So it's more shoulder and elbow that I need to kind of get to the right direction, rather than trying to create, like you said, that windmill sort of action, like where I'm really stretching out my arm and trying to really lead and drive. So the way that I actually drive is not by using my left arm, but actually kind of forcing my rotation from my back leg and my right shoulder. That's how I really that's how I utilize it as much as I possibly can. And even with batting as well, obviously in batting you need to kind of have a strong top hand. For me as a right-handed batsman, I don't have that. But like I've said before, like it's just kind of utilizing what you have. So I've tried different things, and I'm always experimenting. One thing that you'll see me do a lot, if you've ever come in contact with me in terms of cricketing wise, I will experiment in places. Like I'll be like, even now, before we actually got onto the podcast, I was just playing around with spinning the ball and just seeing what works and what doesn't. So I always kind of nitpick on myself, whether it be bowling, batting, fielding. What's the best way that I can improve?
And when you're batting, because of obviously having the sort of limited use of your left arm, do you find particular shots easier to play than others?
So because I'm bottom hand dominant, through the leg side is my preferred area. I've learnt to kind of develop like strong offside shots, but that's only because of my head. So one of the big things that me and the coaches are working on is trying to get my chin to the ball. So because obviously your head being the heaviest part of your body, so wherever your head goes, everything follows. So in terms of cricket, one of the biggest things is like always head towards the ball. Whether you're fielding, whether you're bowling, you want to go towards your target. So in terms of batting wise, you want to go towards the ball with your head, making sure your head's going towards the ball, whether it be back foot, front foot shots. So one thing that I'm working on consistently, whether it be my bowling, is just making sure my head is going in the right direction, because everything will follow that. And to be very honest with you, it's been working. I've been making slow progressions. Even out there, when I was out there in India, I was tinkering and doing the little things that you can to just be a better player. And at the end of the day, it's like I've been saying, it's those tinkering moments where you kind of find your revelation of what works best for yourself and makes you a better player. And kind of progressing from that. So what's the next step? What can I do next?
And we've obviously talked quite a bit about physical disability cricket. Are there any rule adaptations to mainstream cricket, or is it just same rules?
So the only adaptation I'd say is regarding runners. So in the series that we just had, our players didn't have any runners. However, the Indian team did. They had to state the runners. Who would run for them, and if one person is running for someone, they can't run for another person, if that makes sense. So their 3 players were assigned 3 different runners, and they were only allowed to run for them. So that's the only adaptation that I can think of from the top of my head.
And is there a classification system for the game? And if so, can you just give a brief overview of what the classification system is?
So there's no overriding classification system for like a general, like an international classification for what defines disability international cricket. So there's nothing like that. Nothing for like a physical disability international cricket council or anything like that. So the classification is done by the ECB, and whatever the ECB determines. So there's like a proper spreadsheet. Unfortunately, I've got no knowledge about that whatsoever. All I was told when I had the classification done is you can play for England, and I was overjoyed, to be very honest. But there are specific ranks and specific letters and numbers that, unfortunately, I would not be the best man to talk to you about that. But I'm sure our staff know a lot better about that. But yeah, there is classification. But it's determined by governing bodies. In terms of, for us, it'd be the ECB. For India, it's the DICC. Yeah, the DICC. Also, DCCI.
And what are some of the most common disabilities amongst your teammates and players that you play against?
So, most common ones that I've seen are lower limbs. So we've got, from the top of my head, which is going to make me sound like a very, very bad teammate, I know 3 players in the squad that have club foot, so which is issues with the feet, but couldn't tell you a lot about it. But all I know is club foot. We've got some players that have issues, so missing limbs. So we got, I think, two players with missing lower limbs, and what else? We've got some people with hip issues, and various range. But I'd like to say the majority is lower limb. Couple of upper body. So myself being one of them. And Fred Bridges, who's got quite a similar disability to me. He is left arm off spinner, quite a similar disability with his right arm. And who else? And then we've got another player that's got issue with the back. So it's quite varied. It's quite varied. We've got some some players with missing, like I said, missing limbs. But don't know how the best way to word it, to be very honest. But
okay,
different ranges. Sorry.
no, thank you. It's just I guess just to try and give people a bit of an idea, I guess, of what types of conditions players that play the game have.
Yeah.
No, thank you. One question I was going to ask: when you were out in India, what support staff do you have access to, and what support do you guys get from the ECB?
So we had the doctor come out with us. So he was the doc was actually with the Lions squad. So the England Lions squad that was out there in Ahmedabad as well. So he was with them before he came over to us. So we had doctor, we had physiotherapist, we had the physio, operations manager, had coaches. We had 3, so head coach, 2 assistant coaches, team manager, operations manager, pathway lead, and strength and conditioning coach. I think I've named pretty much the whole staff there. But yeah, we had opportunities to kind of sit with them, talk with them, to air our thoughts with them. What are they thinking? How are they feeling? So we had quite good chats, to be very honest. We'd have team meetings where we'd openly discuss those things, what we're feeling, how we're feeling, etc. And yeah, it was quite good. The support staff really were, supportive. So which is obviously a help as an individual, but also as a team to kind of raise morale.
And do you know what the next series or tournament will be that's coming up for England?
There are potential talks of going back to India later on in this year. Nothing is confirmed. Maybe they'll come over to us. Maybe there's a lot of maybes out there. There's nothing really confirmed, at least not from a player's perspective. Maybe from staff, I think they probably have a better understanding. Head of disability cricket would probably know as well. But unfortunately for players, especially, well, at least myself, I'm not as aware. But there are talks. There are talks. There are always talks. So.
And who are the best teams in the world within the sport?
So, India at the minute, as hard as it is for me to say, are the best team in the world. At the minute, they've come over to England and beat us back in 2019. We wanted to go do the same thing against them. Like I said, unfortunately, the ball doesn't always roll your way. So, but at the minute, I'd say that out of the teams that are currently playing physical disability international cricket, it probably have to be us and India are up there. We've had previous tours and series against Pakistan, Bangladesh, and things like that. Personally, I've never played against them, so I can't really say much. But at the minute, from what I've seen in terms of level of cricket and quality of cricket, I think us and India are probably the best 2 teams out there.
And who's the best player you've played with, and who's the best player you've played against, and why?
So, to be very honest with you, when even as you asked this question, I'd like to say the best player that I've played with, I think it's all the boys that I've played in the physical disability squad. They're all so good, in terms of not just as individuals, but also as team players. We've got some amazing batsmen, we've got some amazing bowlers, amazing fielders. Every time that I step onto that pitch with all those boys, they're all, whenever, it's not like one of them's not performing and therefore, it's a bad game. It's like, if one doesn't perform, the other will perform. And I'd like to say, big shout out to all the boys out, that part of the squad that, each and every single one of them, for me, they're the best players I've played with because of how they carry themselves on and off the pitch as well. That makes a big difference to me. Personally, for myself as a spinner, one of the hardest players that I've bowled to, even within our squad, probably is Liam O'Brien. So for me personally, he's one of the best players to spin. Him and Callum Flynn, those but like I said, all of the batsmen, but those two for me stand out a lot. So Liam O'Brien, Callum Flynn, Angus Brown, Alex Hammond. These are all wonderful, wonderful players to spin, and they went out there in India and performed well against spinners of India. And for me, all of these batsmen, best players in terms of batsmen that I've played with, bowlers as well. Got some great spinners, got some great pace bowlers. They're all, in my opinion, they're the best players I've ever played with, till this day at least.
And what's been the highlight of both your international and your domestic cricketing career so far?
So making that debut was very special. It was technically on home soil because I was born in India. So, it was ironically, very, very big thing for me personally, being able to go out there in India, play against India. Unfortunately, as you'll hear me say quite a lot, that didn't win the series. It would have been wonderful to do that, but it was just an amazing feeling. James Norden, my Middlesex captain and fellow English teammate, handed me my first cap. That was wonderful. Felt privileged to have that, and and the opportunities that come with it. Obviously, being on your podcast, doing the BBC things, it's been quite a big privilege. It's been quite a big privilege to kind of just gain these opportunities to kind of go out there. And I think this is probably one of those biggest things in terms of my biggest accomplishments within cricket. I'd like to say that I still am yet to make a statement. I don't really have that in terms of as an individual player. Yes, I've made my debut, but I'm longing for something more, if that makes sense.
And how did you find it? Obviously, as you mentioned, you were born in India. So how did you, what were your emotions when you were sort of obviously playing out there against the country of your birth? Yeah, how did that feel?
So it was quite interesting. Like, I thought I'd get a lot more stick than I actually did. To be very honest, going back to India. But the game that I played, and some of the players out there, they were very. To be very honest, they were very friendly to me, and I didn't feel like there was anyone was out to get me or anything like that. So that's always nice. But like I said, it would have been a wonderful thing to go out there, win, and kind of really give it back to them. But it's it's a game that we love. You win some, you lose some. It's the way you got to keep the ball rolling. But yeah, it was a wonderful experience. I was able to meet certain players, like players with different disabilities, gain something from them, and just seeing the level of cricket that India has as well was quite a big thing for me. I don't think we're very far off of one another. I think it's those 1%ers that I've mentioned before in terms of game wise. I think that series could have easily been ours as well, but it's one of those things. But it was quite an enlightening experience. It taught me a lot about myself as a cricketer, and also how I want to progress further in the game as a disability cricketer.
I used to play blind cricket, and I know quite a few of the lads that play for the England team, and I've seen when they've had series in like India, they've had quite a lot of spectators gather to come and watch the game. So did you guys have many spectators during your matches out there?
So in the last game that we had, which was in Narendra Modi Stadium, that biggest stadium in the world. So though the seats weren't filled, obviously, but we had, I think, about 2,000, 3,000 people show up, which is a very big thing. So the majority of them were kids and school kids coming to watch us play, which was so great. I think it's a wonderful thing to kind of bring that bring kids to see the level of cricket that we play and things like that, give them an experience. It was the first time I've ever been asked to sign things, give things away and things like that. So that was an experience in itself as well. Just having the ability to kind of, people kind of look at you and look up to you in a way. And it was quite enlightening in terms of the fact that, everything in terms of all of the hours that we've put in, everything like that, it's being appreciated. It was quite a wonderful thing to see. And one thing that I do want to mention is that after we lost the game, the game that kind of lost us the series, it was quite a emotional roller coaster for us. But there were a couple of kids that came and played, and after the game, and a couple of our players, massive shout out to Alex Hammond, who just was throwing balls at kids and giving them the time of their life, because at the end of the day, like we as cricketers, we all played because we love the game. And that's something that really took me by storm as well, like that, everything that we've put into it, like it's good to kind of give back to what we've kind of worked towards and inspire the next generation. That's something that that at that time, like big up to Alex, I think I learned quite a lot from that. If I'm ever in a position where I can do that for someone else, I'd love to be that person, love to be that role model.
And who's been the biggest influence on your own cricketing career?
I think personally for myself, my dad's been quite a big person in my personal cricketing career. My dad, I'm a Christian, so I've gotta give glory to where I have to give glory. So God, my dad, my family, and all of the support staff that's helped me. I just everything that I've kind of led up to this moment where I went off and I played, it was quite surreal. A lot of my family were obviously very proud, obviously the BBC piece and everything like that. But I think my dad kind of pushing me. So my dad has driven me across the country just to go play cricket, and I can never repay that to him. And it's something that I'm quite proud about, that I have a really strong relationship with my dad. But he's also kind of like told me, you need to do it like this. And there are times where as a player, you go, yeah, but Dad, I'm the one playing and things like that. But it's one of those things where at the end of the day, if you don't try out, you never know. So it's something that me and my dad have he's been with me, taken me places, respect and honour him as much as I can. And, I just thank God for, just being able to, being given the format and being given the opportunity to kind of just play the sport that I love, and like not be held back, because sometimes it can hold you back, whether it be on a personal level or whether it be, as a sportsman in itself, like not being able to get to places and things like that. I know personally my dad has taken like days off just to go drop me places for cricket. And like I said, I can never forget that or ever repay that in any sort of way. So everything that I am today, it's down, obviously, it's because of God, because of Jesus, but I want to give Dad some credit to kind of showing me the light and being, making those sacrifices for me, because at the end of the day, if he didn't make those sacrifices, I wouldn't be in the position that I am today.
And what are your cricketing ambitions for the future?
To be very honest, I want to become the best player in the world, as arrogant as that sounds, but it's after I witnessed disability cricket of that standard, I felt like I wasn't very far off. And one thing that I came back with a hunger and a desire to do is become the strongest, become the fastest. And if I can become the strongest, the fastest and the smartest cricketer, I feel like I'm pushing myself in the right direction. And so that's something that I personally want to, whenever the next tour is, whenever anything is, I want to become best fielder, best batsman. Like, I know, and there are the boys that I play with are, you know, the best out there that we have in terms of physical disability cricket. But I wanna make a mark on the world, because I feel like I don't know what it is. I think after losing that series, there's just a hunger inside of me. I don't know what's the right way to place it. I don't know if it's like competitiveness or just desires to become better, but I just have a burning desire to show people that, you know what, disability cricket, this is what it is. This is the level of it, and this is how, you know, we want to put disability cricket on the map and show that it's not any different from, you know, mainstream cricket. And we want to show that even though we have difficulties, even though we have, you know, issues, whatever they may be, we can still perform. We can still do X, Y, Z, because at the end of the day, like, we are still playing for our country. We're still wanting to perform well, still wanting to do all these things. So yeah, that's one thing that my cricket ambitions is, to be the best player in the world, but also win a series. So the reason why I want to be the best player in the world is that I know that we're going to lose series in the future, but I want to contribute to a winning series. I don't want to contribute to if that makes sense. I want to be the reason why we win a series rather than the reason why we lose a series.
And you mentioned towards the start of the podcast a bit about, you know, some of your kind of interests outside of cricket. I think you mentioned that you're studying law. So which university are you studying at? You know, how far through your course are you, and how's it going?
Yeah, so I am second year. So I'm actually studying landlord and tenant law in this second semester. So that's it's quite interesting. Something that personally I wouldn't take on as a practicing. I'm more interested in medical law and ethics and things like that. But it's quite an interesting topic. Law in itself is, you know, the whole nation is built on law and, you know, legalities and things like that. And I've always had like an interesting itching desire to also be a voice just in the legal system, because I believe that at the end of the day, if I can't make a difference, like I said over and over again, I quite internalize things like this. If I can't make a difference, no one will. And I know that's kind of like a selfish way of kind of looking at it, but if I can make the difference, then I will.
I don't think that's selfish at all. I think that's a very great outlook to have. I think it just shows you someone who's, you know, has passions and is, you know, very proactive about the, you know, pursuing the things that they want to achieve, which I think is a, you know, great characteristic and attribute to have. So I commend you on that. And you also mentioned near the start that you're sort of involved with some charity work. So just wondered if you can tell us a little bit about, you know, any charities that you're involved with and what you do with them.
Yeah. So in terms of, they're Christian organisations. So one of the biggest ones that I'm organised with is a ministry called Trotby, so the Repairers of the Breach. And so what we do is actually we hold Christian discipleship schools where I kind of serve over a period of 11 days. And so what happens during that, so we teach the Bible, we teach the Bible, we fellowship with one another, like we sit down, have talks with young people, old people, people of all ages, and we prepare food for them, we cater for them, and things like that. So it's a charity in terms of the fact that it's been registered under a charity. So it's been registered back in India. In the UK, it's actually registered as a business. But so what we do in terms of that, so what I've also done, I've done previously other works in terms of I've helped out in shelters and things like that as well, outside the Christian community. But like the majority of my work that I do with this ministry. There's another ministry that I work with as well. But it's something that I pride myself on personally as a man of faith. That like it's ingrained in who I am. So it's like cricket, another part of me, not just that, but my faith in God has helped me a lot in cricket, because there have been times where I've been down and out, and I've been able to pick myself up because of my faith and because of my outlook on life.
And finally, if anyone's wants to follow your journey or to follow the journey of the England Physical Disability Cricket team, how can they follow you on social media?
So my social media handle is Sammy Kumar _19 for Instagram, Facebook, which are the only two that I use. So what I do. So I've recently posted about the recent tour in India and the BBC piece. But I'm looking. We've got a training camp coming up in a couple of days' time actually. So I'll be posting some of the stuff on that, on what we're doing, what our next steps are as a disability team. So it's just something that I'm not actually very media savvy, but I'm trying to kind of get back into it. You'll find that a lot of my posts, like I said, will relate back to God and my faith as well. But in terms of the cricketing journey, they go hand in hand. I believe that it's not like I may post some law stuff on there, post some cricket, so post something about my faith, but at the end of the day, all of these things attribute to who I am. They're not three different lives, and so you'll see various things out there. But those are where you can find me, and I hope you guys enjoy what I put out. And if you don't, then don't really get offended by stuff like that. So hey, it's your choice. So, but yeah, those are my media handles, and I just kind of want to be a role model as much as I possibly can to people who are either looking into disability sports or having a desire to kind of know what's going on within the disability sector. If people are willing to look up to me, then that's great. I feel very privileged, and just feel good that I can be a voice and a role model for those growing up.
Well, Sammy, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast and telling us about your cricketing journey so far. I think you should be very proud of what you've achieved at a young age already, and I look forward to following your journey over the next sort of 10, 15 years and seeing what you achieve and with the England team as well. So please keep in touch and let us know how things are going, and look forward to catching up again one day in the near future.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you for having me.